I am a knowledge hoarder. When I was 19 years old, I bought this e-reader, and the first book that I read was Aldous Huxley's Doors of Perception. And although I couldn't understand much of it, it made me feel smart. I felt like I could grasp the universe with my mind, just like Stephen Hawking's, but without the cool voice. After reading a handful of these brain-gasmic books, I realized I didn't remember much of it. And this wasn't due to some kind of overconsumption of intoxicants like every 19-year-old would do. No, I was simply reading too many and too difficult books to superficially boost my ego by telling myself how smart I am. The problem was that it felt like a massive waste of time reading all these books, but I had this massive hunger for knowledge. I wanted to learn everything. Okay, maybe not everything, like that mitochondria are the powerhouse of the cell, but I wanted to learn a lot. So I started taking notes of every book that I read. And now, more than 10 years later, I have over 100 book summaries. Oh, hello. You want to read some book summaries? Yeah. So I am a knowledge hoarder, and I don't think it's a problem. But I also don't think it's a benefit. It's only knowledge. It's not experience, it's just mental masturbation. I read the books, I felt smart, and then I didn't act on it. So a big lesson that I took away from this is read what you need, so you can immediately apply what you have learned. I was the kid in class that would annoyingly know all the answers, but when it came time to work on a project, I would just freeze. It slowly started to dawn on me that there's a massive difference between knowing and understanding. Because understanding is knowledge times experience. So keep listening if you find yourself stuck in your mind without taking any action, like a race car spinning its wheels, consuming but not moving. One framework that has massively helped me with this is the King, Warrior, Magician, Lover framework. Imagine a triangle where each point stands for a force inside of you, one being the hands, the other being your heart, and the other one being your head. So the warrior, the lover, and the magician. And only when you have your hands, heart and head in balance, you can become a true king or queen to build your kingdom. About 3 years ago, I drew this triangle for myself, and I put a dot where I thought most of my power was. And it was out of balance. It was mostly magician and lover, but there was very little hands, very little action taking. And I started my mission of becoming more like a warrior. And like any good magician would do, I started reading up on how to become more like a warrior. How to do things, but this is exactly not how to do things. So this was all just mental masturbation again. I realized I had to find understanding, not just more knowledge. What helped a lot with this was starting a freelance career, and also after this working a challenging job, full-time job as a consultant, and it made me more capable. So I trained myself not to think so I could move swiftly and with ease. But again, I found myself out of balance, having power in my head and in my hands. I was capable of doing things and reasoning clearly, but there was still something missing. But I felt little to no love, and refinding this connection is the next step in my journey. So I quit my full-time job, I gave up the nice car, and I started freelancing again. So if you need any coaching about focus, check out the link in the description. So answer this question to yourself. Where does most of your power lie? Is it in your hands, in your heart, or in your head? And where do you need to move in order to become more balanced, to become more like this king or queen? So draw up a little triangle, put a dot where you think you are, and an arrow in the direction where you need to go to get more into balance. Put it on your wall as a reminder. But do you know what's even more important than knowing? It's knowing that you don't know, like our OG philosopher Socrates. And a bit more than 2 weeks ago I moved into this place, and I was in a new village looking for a hardware store on my bike, and I realized I made a detour. And my first instinctual reaction was to blame myself. Why didn't you check Google Maps before? Why didn't you figure out beforehand where to go? This is so inefficient. But then I realized the silliness of the whole situation. Why did I expect that I could do something right the first time I try it in a new territory? This is such a silly idea, but most people have it. It's unreasonable to blame yourself for doing something wrong the first time you try it. It's part of the process. We are constantly discovering new territories in life, like in personal development, in your relationships, in business, in biking through a new village, or by taking care of a cat that just gave birth to 7 kittens like I did last week. So of course you don't know the way. That's exactly how it's supposed to be. So embrace not knowing and being lost. Because this is a part of the process of transformation. It's not a failure, it's a feature. Nature has been lost for 3.8 billion years. It doesn't know where to go, and neither do we. Nature can't even think 2 steps ahead. That's why it has never invented the wheel. And it can be a strength or a weakness, but how many times have you got stuck because you were trying to think more than 2 steps ahead and you got anxious? Do you automatically imagine what things will be like? And is this blocking your creative flow? This is a bad design process. It's what in product design we call jumping to conclusions. You're not first discovering all the possibilities, but you're just going with your first idea. And I know that this is also something that I tend to do. If Henry Ford asked people what they wanted, they would say, "We want faster horses." But no one would come up with the idea of a car. Because in order to come up with this idea of a car, you have to be embracing not knowing. Because I have the tendency to jump to conclusions in all my enthusiasm, I created this framework to help you navigate new terrains and to get to the best results. It's called the F.L.O.W framework. It stands for Fascinate, Learn, Outline and Work. And this works for any creative job like painting or writing or web design, because I'm also a web designer, and if you need a website, check out the link in the description. And I would normally always start with fascinate. I would get obsessed with this one grandiose idea that I would hold in my mind, like how amazing the idea is to build a double-decker couch. If you've seen Lego the movie, I would definitely recommend it, especially for adults, or like the idea of making Crocs. And after this I would jump right into work mode, building everything out to later realize that all my efforts were for nothing. But why? Because I was so arrogant to think that my first idea was the best one. So now we only have the F and the W, but we are missing the 2 most important parts, which are learn and outline. So after you get hit by inspiration and you get fascinated by one idea to build a website or write a content article or your poodle's new haircut, you start learning. You have to embrace that you don't know what is best. Decide to pick around 3 to 5 examples in 30 minutes or use more time for longer projects. It's important to set a time limit because otherwise you're going to get lost in a rabbit hole. After you've found 5 examples, you start with the 3rd stage, which is outline. You mix and match everything that you've put into your scrapbook to come up with a concept. And at last you start to build your concept into reality and work. This framework helps me to structure my creative work and get into the flow. So embrace not knowing, because not knowing is a great strength. It's not a weakness. Because when you understand that you don't know, the world opens up to you. And once you do know, understand that this is just mental masturbation again, and you have to go and experience stuff in order to turn it into understanding. Because understanding equals knowledge times experience. So remember to draw up your king, warrior, magician, lover triangle, point out where you are and where you need to go, and use the flow model. Thank you for watching, subscribe, and don't forget to eat your broccolis.